Brian.
Yes, Father?
I think we need to begin.
Fine. I was just enjoying a little light summer reading. Have you read this?
I've never read that. No.
Oh, man.
Is it good? I've heard a lot about it.
Oh, it's fantastic. This is the best coloring book I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, it's not appropriate for all ages.
Be gone, demon.
Yeah, that's actually the alternate title of it. But in fact, apparently I endorsed this book. Did you know that?
Did you?
Yeah. No, it's actually great. Good summer read. And you know what? Here's the deal. One thing I've learned about my Catholic priest friends, you all are so humble. You don't bring your own stuff to market. Do you need a Protestant? Does every Catholic need a good Protestant to help them market?
As long as he's a good marketer.
That's right. Well, we're good if we're good at innovation, right?
We are.
That's right. We are? Oh, you mean I'm good at innovation, right?
We are.
All right, grammar police. Welcome back to The Exorcist Files, the show with Ryan and the Padre, recording not too far from the Sierra Madre. I've done that introduction so many times, I'm running out of things to say. We are sitting a great distance away, and I know this table is not emblematic of our theological differences, but actually it's just a really long table. So this is no way a suggestion that we are that far apart, but it is good to be with you in person, which doesn't happen that often.
It doesn't. So this is a great change. One thing that is not pleasant about it is I'm here in California and paying an incredible amount for fuel.
Really? And you're not talking about spiritual fuel, are you?
Nope. I'm talking about gas at the pump.
Yeah, I know. Well, hopefully you can deliver us some better gas prices soon. Today we'll be doing another rewind episode where we go back into our case files. And this one, I say a lot of them are controversial. All of them ruffle feathers. This one is very interesting because I've had conversations with priests from all different backgrounds and even different ministers and different Christian expressions. And exorcists say Freemasonry, absolutely a problem. We see it all the time. A lot of other folks, and these are learned, very wise, but say, honestly, I don't see how this could be an issue. Something someone's ancestor did 9 generations ago affects it. Seems crazy. And so I want to start by having us go back to the Case of Adelaide and our episode called Live Free about we called her an elderly woman, but a woman who is getting on in years and starts experiencing increased manifestations of some sort of presence, being watched, being pulled out of her bed, tapped on the shoulder. And importantly, a woman who was not engaged in any sort of sin that we could see. This is the Case of Adelaide. And I want to start us off by rolling a clip to introduce the episode.
A few nights ago, I was asleep, and I thought I felt the covers moving. They were slowly sliding off me. And then I felt 2 taps on my shoulder. Oh, it was the creepiest thing. And I felt the stare. I knew if I rolled over, whatever it was would be there. So I just froze.
All right, so Father, what stands out to you about this case, our first Freemasonry case?
Yeah. That even though Adelaide had nothing to do with Masonry, she was experiencing the effects of an oath that her grandfather took. And this is something that there was even a time in my life where, when I was learning about all of this, I found it hard to swallow that somebody could enter into an oath and then his descendants down the line, it may even skip a generation or two, or cycle. So every second generation, every third generation is touched by this. I would have found that hard to swallow, but I'm an absolute convinced believer at this point that these effects, these residual effects, do actually touch the descendants. And Adelaide's case is a perfect example of how that is in fact true.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive in. I've got a million questions on this. I'll start with this. We've seen a lot of stories of this. There have been public figures in recent time, very public figures, who have opened up about waking up with lacerations, bruises, cuts, etc. This is maybe a little strange question. I know, maybe a bit of conjecture, but what is happening with a spiritual force interacting with physical matter and then leaving a residue? Like, what is going on there? Because I find it very interesting that do the demons want to leave evidence of their involvement? Is that kind of the price of taking on, breaking the physical rules and coming into our kind of plane of being?
And so that's $1 million question. And my answer for that is, I don't know. Because I could see both the pro and the con for whether they want that evidence to be there or not. Okay, so what's the pro? Well, it adds a certain level of scariness. It shows that that we are strong. We're strong enough to leave a force on your leg. That also, at the same time, in addition to the feeling that she felt, leaves a visual, right? So it's a double whammy, right? Like, here's our calling card. We were here, and we were here for you. And if we can do this much to you, guess what else we can do to you? So it raises the level of fear, if you will. However, if they leave no mark, then she's left potentially feeling like she's being gaslit, right? Did I dream this? Did it really happen? Or I think in her conscious experience, she has no doubt that it did happen. She lived through, she was conscious through it, that she was awake, clearly awake. However, there's no evidence with which she can go to somebody and say, look what happened to me. Like, look at what's on my leg. Look, there's nothing on my leg. So there's no way to verify the experience. In her case, there was. But at the same time, I mean, part of your question was, is this something the demons want? And I don't know if it is. But certainly, I can tell you one thing that's for sure, is that God wanted it done in this way.
Yeah, permit. Yeah, because I've thought about, as you've mentioned in the show multiple times, that the reality is if a demon is occupying someone and manifesting and taking on physical matter in some relationship, they're then subjecting themselves, and this specifically in regards to relics. So if they are encountering a physical object that is a conduit of power, and they are now playing, it's like they came into the sandbox of physicality, and so now they're subject to the rules a little bit. And because I got to think, what you just laid out, it seems like it would be nowhere in their interest to leave marks, et cetera. And so I find that very, very interesting.
Well, I could see it both ways, right? Like they, and I'll tell you this, and they do pick both ways. They pick one way or the other, or at least God does it for them. Whatever is the result where it ends up, whatever the final result of whatever manifestation they cause, you can bet that that's the way that God permitted it to be. He didn't cause it, right? He didn't cause it, but he forces them to act within a certain purview of his authority. And they may not like that at all, but that's the way it's going to be. So he'll permit them to act, but you have to act in this way. And whatever way in which God permits them to act, there's always a thread that is a link to their undoing. So this is why I pay close attention to the symptoms, close attention to all of them as a package. And what do they point to? You profile. So if you're looking for an enemy, and you're looking for an enemy that causes this, what is likely to be in the mind of your enemy? So I start thinking like that. And if I don't crack anything, if I don't get anywhere, I'll ask some of my colleagues. Like, hey, I want to tell you about a case. This is what I'm encountering. I've tried this, and this. I've tried to look at this through this way, that way, and that way. What do you think?
Yeah. I want to roll the clip of we actually reenacted, the way that actors reenact part of the Masonic oath swearing. Very interesting, too. I think we shared this on the show. Some of the actors were Christian who worked on the show. Others were completely agnostic. And both sides were uncomfortable saying this. And at point, I'm half joking, but they were like, can we change the words a little bit? And I thought it was a very interesting observation that even to say the lines was a bit jarring for them. So I want to roll the clip here.
In the presence of the Almighty God, do hereby and hereon most solemnly and sincerely promise and swear, whatever binding myself under no less penalty than that of having my throat cut across, my tongue torn out by its roots, and my body buried in the rough sands of the sea.
Right off the bat, a person might say, all right, Father, this is a super secret society. How do you know that's actually what is said? That sounds really intense. That seems nothing like the parade. And also, we all know lots of great people who are involved in their community and probably involved in Freemasonry. I mean, George Washington, our first president, was president of the Masons. So how do you know what we just overplayed is actually what's happening?
Yeah. So a great question. And we know it from people who have defected. And they've produced the oaths. They've produced the literature that is used within the Masonic Society. And
Have you seen this material yourself?
yes, I have numerous copies of it of people who have sent it to me. Because they leave and hey, here, or they've come across them in a garage sale or that type of thing.
So basically, you're Freebay. You have all the former Masonic items just sitting on a shelf somewhere.
I do. And there, and among the different lodges, there might be minor differences in the oaths, but they're really, for all intents and purposes, identical. And so what you're doing when you make that oath, which you never make on your own behalf, all right? It is, you don't speak on your own behalf when you do any of the Masonic oaths. Someone is making them on your behalf, but you're consenting.
So what do you mean? Meaning like if I was there, someone else is swearing for me, or?
Yes. So you were introduced. So you're blindfolded at this point. You have this kind of weird set of pajamas on. Your left shoulder's exposed. There's a sword pointed to your heart. Any jewelry that you've had on is taken off, including wedding ring. And if you have a cross or a crucifix or that, off. And so right away there's a problem here. So there is no ceremony a Christian does that his Christian church ever asks him to remove all his jewelry, like such as his wedding ring and if he has anything religious hanging on his neck. But in this case, it is. So already at this level of sign and symbol, there's an indication that what is happening is something primordial, more primordial than even your Christian identity. And so then this is a problem. This is a problem, right? If like what is happening in this oath that would necessitate you to set aside your Christian identity? Because that's in fact what you're being asked to do. And so if you comply, that's what you're doing.
So already at an action level, you're being told Christianity or your relationship with the Lord is not the most important thing.
Right. And now there's something even more basic, more primordial than that at the level of sign and symbol. And so essentially, and you're agreeing to this, this is you signing on that contract. You may not intend it, but the terms of a contract, no single side gets to determine what the terms of a contract are, right? Like if you're handed a contract and you sign, you don't know what you're signing up for unless you understand that contract. But if you don't understand it, your signature validates it nonetheless. So you've just agreed to the terms.
Protein, protein, protein. Everyone is obsessed with protein. And for good reason, because evidence overwhelmingly shows that a high-protein diet is conducive to optimal body composition. Protein fills us up, helps us with muscle, it balances our blood sugar responses. It helps in a lot of ways, but it's not always easy to get the right amount of protein in healthy formats. And that is why I'm excited to talk about our new partner, Veracity. Now, Veracity sent me some of their metabolic power protein, which of course had me very interested given the title. The key ingredient is something called MyoVera, which amplifies your body's ability to use protein more effectively. Knowing me, of course, the first thing I did was ask multiple AI models to investigate the claims. MyoVera works by using a specialized chromium and starch complex to try and increase insulin sensitivity and help with protein uptake. As a result, it essentially aims to amplify your protein intake by forcing the body to utilize these nutrients for more muscle protein synthesis with maximum efficiency. So yeah, I think it's interesting and I'm really excited to take it. I just started, in fact, and I'm really excited to track the results. Chromium does have some really interesting research, so try it on your own search engine and see what it says. Plus, their protein is third-party tested for toxins and heavy metals, which is a big deal for me. Any protein powder I take, I insist, has to be third-party tested. Now, will this make me ripped and shredded after just a week? Probably not, but give it a month or two, I'm excited to see the results. So get the protein in your diet you need and satisfy your cravings the natural way with Veracity. Head to veracityhealth.co and use the code XFiles, that's EXFiles, for up to 65% off your order. Once again, that's VERACITY health.co, veracityhealth.co for up to 65% off. And make sure you use our promo code XFiles so they know we sent you.
Hello, men. Father Martin's here. People ask me all the time about how to keep the enemy out of their lives. Obviously, you want to stay close to God and develop a prayer life, but there's something else that's crucial. You need connection to Christian community. I know that that's not always easy to get, but here's an easy way to get it. On August 12th, Exodus 90 starts their St. Michael's Lent Challenge, and I absolutely recommend you give it a go. They'll be working through the book of Daniel this year, one of my personal favorites. Now, I'll warn you, it's not a cakewalk, but the spiritual journey rewards sacrifice. And if you give this a go and go all in, I guarantee you will see God respond. So download the Exodus 90 app today and join the St. Michael's Lent Challenge, which begins August 12th. The link is also in the show notes. Exodus 90. You won't regret it. Over 250,000 men have participated, and over 99% have stated they have found greater freedom through it. Join the St. Michael's Lent Challenge. You won't regret it.
So is this oath happening at is the other reason we don't hear about it that often because it's happening, and this is at a higher level thing, and so your average...
No, this is not at all. In fact, the oath I'm talking about here is the first oath. The first, so in order to become a Mason, you have to enter what's called the Blue Lodge. And the Blue Lodge is essentially a classification whereby you take 3 oaths entering into the first 3 levels of Masonry. And these are the basic, the kind of the primordial oaths that you take that make you a simple member of the Masonic order. So this is oath number 1. I mean, and in my book, I take it apart in my chapter on Masonry. I don't need to even go into the other oaths, but you could write tomes of problems of identification of problems that are inherent in those oaths. But what you're doing is very clear in this first level of oath is if you violate what you're agreeing to, you are essentially bringing a curse upon yourself and your ancestry. And that's what you're agreeing to through words that are executed, that are arranged in a very dastardly sleight of hand format.
Yeah, so that was the other part of the oath that we heard, is that there is consequences if the secrecy is not kept. But what's very interesting, and I found very interesting about this oath, and some would say that's just theatrics and in dramatic effect, but it is interesting, and I think it's natural that anyone would have some discomfort. I mean, I would almost understand more like, sure, if I ever break the oath, like whatever, like that's on me. But what's interesting is you brought my family into it now, right? And any descendants, what is being communicated from and not just Freemasons, say any organization that says, hey, if you mess this up, what other, I mean, I don't want to get
You are granting the organization power to effect this. You are consenting to something that you ought never to consent to.
Yeah, why? I just don't understand what plausible, sure, at a joke level, you're like, oh, it's just because it's a serious thing. But I thought, how could you even bring that in, like on my children's children?
Most people view it as hyperbole, and they don't have a grasp of what is contained in the oath at the level of sign and symbol. Our sign and symbol, we are our signs and our symbols in our life. Like we are that. So Christians, we wear crosses. We have crosses in our homes. We put scriptures on our walls, which, yes, they are words. They're fragments of a great piece of literature, but the words themselves become a symbol that identify us. And so we surround ourselves with our symbols because they describe our identity. You'll wear a baseball cap with your favorite baseball team's logo on it, and that's a part of your identity. You want to communicate that this is what I am. But there are signs and symbols, and then there are signs and symbols. And the more primordial, the more basic you go, the more at the level of your fundamental identity is being described. And when you're asked to set that aside and take on something even more basic. So, for example, at the end of the first oath for the level of entered apprentice, which is the first oath that you take, the first in your path to become a member of the Blue Lodge. By the time the ceremony is done, of course, you're blindfolded, but you find yourself kneeling at a table in front of an open book of the Bible. And so you think, okay, well, this is, you're making a religious kind of vow. That's something that is not incompatible with my faith, because look at that. Like the Word of God is right in front of me.
Bible in court, right? Take a Bible oath in court.
However, on top of the Bible is the square and compass, the symbol of the Masonic order. Then when you go look at the literature and see the Bible and how it is defined within the Masonic text, the Bible is referred to as a movable piece of furniture.
So you could actually, I think we covered, you could substitute any other religious book.
You can substitute any other religious book. But what is important is the square and compass. And what is beneath it is merely a movable piece of furniture. So at the level of sign and symbol, your Christian faith is being downplayed, and something else is being put in its substitute as something even more primordial.
Another thing that was mentioned in the oath that we had on the show was a tearing out the guts. And, I'm sure I've heard different people say that, or bind a cord around my stomach. It was something like that. And we had a guest exorcist on who shared that for whatever reason. And I really appreciate his perspective, because he wasn't saying, look, he was aware, I know how this sounds. That he's like, but I have found in my ministry, you say whatever you want. Don't believe me, I don't care. I have prayed for people with this. And when these rights have been revoked, in many cases, I have seen multiple generations of grandparents, parents, kids with gastrointestinal illness and gastric issues disappear. And he's like, it's the strangest thing. In fact, he said, I believe I've seen gluten intolerance disappear. Now, living in Los Angeles, I've long suspected that gluten intolerance is a spiritual issue. But I was surprised at that. And he goes, look, it's not uncommon that there are sometimes demonic gateways manifest in consistent patterns in people. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. I've seen people that, do you tie that to the oath and the parts where in some versions it's spill out my guts and, that could be part of it?
Do I tie it to it? Well, I've not encountered those kinds of symptoms yet.
Okay, so that's not been your experience then?
It hasn't been my direct experience, tying it to gastrointestinal issues, but it's not to say that it couldn't be. I haven't encountered anybody with those things. So if I did, I would say a prayer and ask if that if there's any link to the Masonic ancestry here, the Masonic oaths, that the Lord would take that away. Certainly, it wouldn't hurt to pray that, to ask that of the Lord when you're praying with somebody.
When you've dealt with Freemasonry, so in Adelaide's case, she had extreme manifestations. Being pulled out of bed, this creepy being tapped on the shoulder twice. It also started manifesting where it expanded beyond her and started going after her granddaughter too, which I want to get to that. But real quick, what have you seen in people? You say now you've done a lot of ministry and dealt with this, and a lot of your exorcist colleagues have said this. Are there patterns of manifestation that you have found in cases particularly tied to Freemasonry?
Yeah, so generally two of them. Fear, like a chronic fear, just like in Adelaide's case, that the sense of being watched. That is so common in the descendants of Freemasons. The sense of being watched, there's a creepiness around, but it's deep and it's visceral. It's not momentary, it's repetitive. It keeps being there. It may not be there constantly and every day, but there's a cycle, a regular cycle where it comes back. The person is just not free of it. The other thing is anger, even to the point of rage, where
you're talking about disproportionate, like anger that sets you off from like the slightest provocation.
One example, I'll illustrate it through an example that all of a sudden, this young man, this kid, turns 13 years old, and all of a sudden just can't stand his father anymore.
That sounds like most 13-year-olds, to be fair, right?
But we're not talking about issues of allowance or
The
being
teenager, come
grounded.
on.
It didn't involve the typical teenage stuff. So this is a father and son that were friends constantly, loved to play catch, both baseball fans and so forth. But then all of a sudden, just overnight, kid can't stand his father, and all of a sudden they come to blows. They come to fists. And all that needs to happen is dad comes home, kid changes immediately. And there's just no reason. There's no antecedent cause for this. And so eventually, it was the grandfather that called me and said, there has to be something going on spiritually here. There has to be. The grandfather was a deacon. So he was well-versed in religion, had a lot of theological training, smart man. And he just said, look, I just need another set of eyes to look at this because there's something evil here. So again, I went through all of my usual thing. I have a very extensive intake form that I had this kid fill out. I couldn't find a doorway in his life. Look, the kid was attending church, didn't have a porn habit online, wasn't getting into trouble, wasn't using drugs, wasn't stealing. He was living a good life, but there was Masonry in their background. And so I just had him do a simple prayer renouncing any and every effect that was finding him, that was connecting with him due to any ancestral involvement in Masonry. It's done. Was never angry at his father again.
And so was it his grandfather or was it the grandfather's clergy? So was it
his grandfather? It was further down the line. And in fact, you know what? I just remembered. No one remembered anyone from the family. But because I had exhausted everything else, I thought, I'll just lead him through a renunciation. And obviously there had to be someone because that's specifically what we prayed against. And then the result happened after we did that.
From what I'm hearing, I don't know of an argument. Like, is there an argument, Father, for anyone not doing preemptive Freemasonry removal prayers?
I couldn't see any harm in doing it at all, right? And you certainly don't need a priest and much less an exorcist to do it. And you don't need a formula. You just, in your own words, ask the Lord to come and dissolve anything that is there that ought not to be there, and do it not just for yourself, but ask him also to do the same for the other members of your family.
Also, and just, in case people are thinking we're putting on our tinfoil hats here, we've covered yoga in the show, and the Catholic Church in particular has not made a definitive, declaration. It's more you talk to different priests, and it seems to be general, at least caution at the least. But with Freemasonry, there actually have been Vatican published documents warning people, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Father, right? Today, you cannot be a Catholic in good standing and a active practicing member of a Masonic lodge, right?
You can't be a Mason and be a Catholic in good standing, meaning you cannot receive the Eucharist, you cannot receive the sacraments if you are a Mason.
I mean, that's just so interesting because that shows right there that obviously for the church to make that kind of declaration, they must view it as enough of a threat to human flourishing, right?
And historically, Masonry is not shy about saying how much of a threat it is to Christianity. They're not shy at all. In fact, there is the old saying of Masonry was, we're going to make the streets flow with the blood of Catholics.
Hard to start a dialogue when that's the opening. It's interesting because there are many, throughout history, it seems like on the Protestant side, on our side of the house, it seems like there's a lot more interaction between Protestants and Freemasonry. And I wonder if that's a natural outpouring of the Reformation and schism were they kind of joining Freemasonry as a result of kind of a shared antagonism towards the Catholic Church?
It could be. I mean, that would be an interesting study. Whether that's it, I don't know. But certainly, we are. in the Protestant history, there isn't this distancing itself from Freemasonry that there is in the Catholic Church.
Sure. All right, I want to play a clip here because we mentioned that this entity, whatever was happening, one of the last straws was when it attacked her granddaughter. So let's play this one.
After dinner, her granddaughter, Aiden, excused herself to go to the restroom, which was down the hall across from Adelaide's bedroom. The adults remained at the table talking and catching up. After a few minutes, her granddaughter came in, disturbed and shaken.
Mom, Dad, I don't want to play anymore.
Oh, honey, what do you not want to play?
Someone is joking with me and I don't like it.
Oh, sweetheart, who is joking with you?
Someone keeps tapping me on the shoulder.
What did you say, sweetie?
I heard a noise in your room, Grandma, and then when I opened your door, someone tapped me on the shoulder.
Honey, we're all in the dining room. It wasn't us. It was probably the air from the vent up there. No one is playing a joke on you, sweetheart.
Yes, they are, Dad. They touched my shoulder right here, like this. 2 times.
Aiden, no one is
You're right,
touching.
sweetie. It's not funny. Now, why don't you go play in the living room where Grandma can see you, and I'll get dessert ready, okay?
When the Apostle Paul encouraged Timothy to have a little wine for his stomach and digestion in 1 Timothy 5:23, we learned something about Paul. He understood the importance of gut health. All right, a little bit of a stretch, but colostrum is an area that really fascinates me in particular for gut health, and not just any colostrum, Cowboy colostrum. Now, everyone is constantly talking about gut health and how we can improve it and how important it is, and it's true. It's something we probably all should spend more time optimizing. I mean, think about how complex the entire digestive system is. You have all these bacteria that interplay with the absorption of nutrients, and there's even some evidence that shows these bacteria, they actually can help regulate even our mood and influence our mental health. Now, all that has me wanting to do whatever I can to optimize my gut. And part of that is using Cowboy colostrum, which offers the highest quality bovine colostrum available in the U.S. It's 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. Unlike other colostrum brands, Cowboy is true first-day whole colostrum. Now, in addition, Cowboy ran their own study. And sure, you can rightly call out that it's not 100% independent, but their own clinical study said 83% of participants reported improved gut health, 79% experienced less bloating and inflammation, 72% saw improved digestion, and 62% saw fuller, thicker hair. So, for a limited time, our listeners get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/xfiles. That's code EXFiles at checkout. That's 25% off when you use our code XFiles at cowboycolostrum.com/xfiles. Today, a lot of men are on a ton of different treatments for testosterone, and for good reason. Aging, stress, our modern lifestyle, all these things conspire against us to cause levels to decline as we get older. It's just a fact of life. And as that happens, fat can increase, muscle can decrease, and even our cognition and sleep can be affected, which of course turns around and causes more fat increase and our muscle to decrease. Testosterone is a big deal for men. And for many men, the options to help it return to optimal levels, well, those treatments carry some risks and side effects that a lot of us are not comfortable with. If that's you, let me tell you about Mars Men. Now, this is not the be-all, end-all, but it does have some clinically researched ingredients that can really help. Mars Men is a natural supplement designed to support healthy testosterone levels, which can help your body burn fat more efficiently and build lean muscle. It doesn't have any weird stimulants or synthetic hormones. It has real natural ingredients like tongkat Ali, shilajit, zinc, boron, and more that support healthy T levels, weight management, and exercise performance. Now, seriously, go look up some of these ingredients on your own and see the data. It's really interesting. Plus, it's way more cost effective than buying all these things individually and taking them. And it's made right here in the USA, and every batch is third-party tested, which is a big deal when you take supplements. So, it also comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Worst case, you don't absolutely love it, and you just get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results, and you can go on their website and check out the reviews for yourself. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you.
All right, so Father, could you share a little bit about the progression of this case? I find it very interesting that when Adelaide was a young girl, she has this sense of something, and then as she gets older, it increases, and then when she hits 60, it starts to really pick up, and then 70, when you interacted with her, it was full-blown. And then that's when it also started going after her granddaughter as well. So what is happening with, we've talked a lot about in the show, escalation, like these phenomena rarely seem to stay neutral. It seems that something's going to happen. Either like God's going to come in and set someone free, or it's going to get worse and worse and worse, right? So is that generally how this goes? And then what led to the increased manifestation as she got older?
I think it's just part and parcel with the oath, that this is part and parcel of the general effect, that they are promised the offspring of the oath taker. And so what happened in the case of the second tap, it was the exact wrong time with which to do it, because what it did is it woke up Grandma Bear. And it's one thing for you to do it to me, but now you're going after my granddaughter? No way. And that's what prompted the call to me. And I thought, okay, we've got to deal with this. And there isn't, this town isn't big enough for this Masonic demon and Christ. One is going to win, and it's not going to be Christ that's going to lose.
That's right. A poly market always has Jesus as the favorites winning. And as far as the manifestations increasing from as Adelaide got older, is that due to the demons gaining more of a stronghold as she gets older? Or like, is it the case that the longer, I know so much of this conjecture, but is it the case the longer a demon has a hold, that hold is not necessarily static, that hold, it's kind of, I almost think of a shatter in a windshield, like you have a crack. It never stays, generally, right? It never stays the same. It just keeps splintering and splintering and splintering. Is that what's happening here?
It appears so. As somebody is getting older, he or she is getting closer and closer to death. And so at the point of death, then there's going to be a transition, a migration. So that soul is either going to go to heaven, or it's going to go to the place that you don't want to go to. And that the fact that this demon, this manifestation is showing more and more of its power as that person is getting closer and closer to death, it's a sign that something is really wrong here.
Which could be God. I hear you say that, and I wonder if that's God also. Now, in Adelaide's case, she was right with the Lord, but you could see a world where God's like, I'm going to use a demon as a warning sign, right?
And that's the key word right there. I'm going to use a demon. And God permits evil to exist because it's useful in his divine plan. And this, you're identifying one way in which it can be very useful. So is that what is at the heart of every Masonic demonic manifestation? I don't know. But certainly in some of them, I absolutely believe it is. And in this case, I'm 10 to 1 that's in fact what was happening. And again, the demon overplaying his hand in tapping that granddaughter, that woke Adelaide up, and she transitioned from fear to anger in one fell swoop. And that anger was most useful in this situation.
And I know a lot of people are going to hear this and think, well, gosh, she was a Christian woman, devout prayer life, serving regularly. As humans, we always want to figure out, I find that so many of us are Job's friends, right? Like, Job, just what's the sin? And I'll tell you, that's why your whole family's dead and you're sick, right? It's just the one thing you did wrong, right? That's always human nature. Is like, Jesus, tell us who sinned, right? This guy's blind. Clearly it was and in Adelaide's case, it seems like it's actually more like Jesus' answer. No one. I mean, a long time ago, but for her, not her. today I'm just this is happening so that God's glory may be shown. And I'm curious to know, have you followed up with Adelaide? Is there any how's she doing? Because sometimes, like in the case of Tammy, who we talk about often, the enemy overplayed his hand and she's turned into just a fiery prayer warrior. And so he's got a whole new sheriff in town on that one.
So yeah, it had been 10 years since I prayed with Adelaide, and I prayed with her in one session. This is the commonality with any Freemasonry manifestations, that they end very quickly. Like, they don't linger. They are over in 1, 2, maybe 3 sessions tops. Like, I have never experienced them going on and on and on and on. But in other words, they're easily dissolvable. When I called her up, she remembered me. It had been over 10 years. I asked her how it was going. She said everything was gone. She had never experienced again any of those things, like the toilet flushing by itself in the night, a tap in her sleep, or being pulled out of bed. But even that sign that she had experienced from the time she was a little girl, the sense of being watched and watched by something that was just counting down the clock before it could lay claim to her, it was gone. She never experienced it again.
Do you think there's a lot of people out there in both, all expressions of Christianity that are experiencing some things? And obviously we like to leave on a hopeful note in this show, but do you think there are people that go to their priests or their pastors and have heard rumors about Freemasonry and go, hey, I might have something, and have been told, oh, come on, that's not why you're having this, etc. So I guess I'm asking, what advice would you give to anyone who's like listening to this and going, I've tried everything. I have some weird stuff going on. No one seems to know what it is. What do I do? And also, or my pastor, who is well-intentioned, or my priest says, right, honestly, I don't think, I wouldn't worry about it.
What I would say is go in front of the Lord and you do your business with him. Say, Lord, if there's anything in this area, if there's any masonry in my background, right? So I forgive whoever was a Mason. I forgive him for the oaths he took. I forgive him for knowingly or unknowingly sacrificing me and whoever else in my family has been sacrificed as collateral for this Masonic membership. I ask you to dissolve it. I renounce it. I renounce it for me. On behalf of my ancestor, on behalf of all of my relatives, I ask you to intervene and burn up anything and everything that is touching us, touching me, touching them, that has come by way of the Masonic. I want nothing to do with it. On your behalf, I lay this claim for me and for all my relatives. I ask for your sovereign will to exist in us and nothing else.
Amen. Copyright Father Carlos Martins, 2026, Deliverance Prayers. And Father, just so everyone hears for the record, you don't need to go home immediately and renounce your coin collecting membership, resign from the math club, leave Toastmasters, right? It's basically a good litmus test would be, did your initiation ceremony or does your organization require you to swear fidelity or fealty to anything beyond the Christian God, remove all your jewelry, and swear on your unborn descendants punishment if you ever leave or break the secrecy. If it doesn't violate those 3, is that probably a good start?
That's a good start. I would add also in there, as long as they don't make you take an oath, the contents of which you really don't understand because it sounds so strange and convoluted, right? If it sounds strange and convoluted, why? Right? You don't need this in your life.
It's interesting too. I think, I forget which episode it was, but we chronicled there are certain gangs that have initiations that, not necessarily, there are oaths, but there are some other there are cults and gangs and different associations where part of the joining organization requires also an act of blood sometimes, of just sacrifice, etc. That's really interesting too. And I wonder, is that also part of a organization knowingly or unknowingly spiritually, binding someone to them?
Yeah, for sure. So, anytime that you're asked to make an oath, the contents of which are not really clear to you, it's convoluted, it's strange sounding, don't do it. If you don't know clearly the terms to which you are swearing, then don't swear them. Don't belong to them. Most people think that when they enter into something like this, that as long as their heart is right with God, that any malevolence attached to the curse won't touch them. But that's not entirely true, right? You just don't know. Because taking an oath that has a strangeness to it, like the Masonic oath does, is an act of the occult. And when you do something that touches the occult, whatever happens to be swimming around that portal can come in and lay hold of you. And you might be a Christian or not. You might be in the state of grace or not. But now something has decided that it wants to bear down on you. And you have to deal with those consequences.
And it seems so much of the spiritual walk, particularly the Christian journey, I mean, we look at the Old Testament, God defines himself as the truth, or like he's the ultimate arbiter of like, I am perfection and truth, and everything's about covenant and agreement and contract. And I find it very interesting that in so much of the show and your experiences and the people we've had on, they just document that it's just spiritual warfare in one sense seems to get distilled down to a series of contracts that humans are knowingly and unknowingly making constantly, and a God above who is constantly trying to remind us of the most of the actual contract that we're supposed to be a part of. And it seems like we as humans tend to trade that for so many things. Is that a fair characterization?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's and I like the way that you put that you framed it. I think you're bang on.
Well, that is the biggest miracle of the show, is that Father Martins affirmed something I said.
Well, because he wasn't making a joke when he said it.
That's right. So I should let us land the plane here. Sorry to say the word let us. I know that is triggering for you, Father.
Oh my goodness.
But would you close us out in prayers for everyone
I guess I better, because it'll bring an end to the jokey. So, mighty God, we ask your grace upon this endeavor, upon all those who are listening, upon their family members, especially upon all those who are the descendants of Masons. And Lord, may your grace be upon them. May you set them free from any residue, any spiritual contamination that has come to them by way of that. And Lord, bring them all into your heart. Bring us all into your heart. In Jesus' name we pray, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. And it doesn't matter, even if you did join the lodge, you can't use this book. Do not put a compass on this book, right, Father?
That's right. But you need to buy it.
That's right. But you do need to buy it. And that's a contract you definitely understand. Buy the book, get good results. Same day deliverance, folks, but not really. Results may vary. God bless you, Father.
Thank you.